King Charles smiled and waved to crowds this morning, a day after spending time in hospital dealing with side effects from his cancer.
Just 3 minutes ago, royal doctors delivered a confirmation so carefully worded, yet so deeply unsettling, that it immediately altered the tone inside Buckingham Palace. The statement did not describe symptoms. It did not name conditions. But its message was unmistakable. King Charles' capacity to maintain his role, exactly as before, is now under serious review. This was not a routine update. Palace language watchers quickly noted the gravity embedded in the phrasing. The emphasis was not on recovery timelines or reassurance, but on adjustment, on monitoring, on limits. Words the monarchy uses only when continuity can no longer be assumed. For months, subtle changes had raised questions. A lighter schedule, carefully managed appearances, longer intervals between engagements. Each adjustment explained away as precaution. Today, those precautions were quietly validated. Royal doctors have now confirmed that the king's situation requires a rebalancing, not temporary, but structural. Behind palace walls, insiders describe this moment as deeply sobering. Not because of immediate crisis, but because of what it represents. The realization that the monarchy must prepare for a future where King Charles' presence cannot be guaranteed in the way it once was. This confirmation forces uncomfortable questions into the open. How much can the crown adapt without destabilizing itself? What happens when the monarch's role must be managed rather than assumed? And how close is the institution to another profound transition? Tonight, we examine the truth behind the royal doctor's disturbing confirmation and what it means for King Charles, the crown, and the future already being quietly reshaped. The confirmation delivered by royal doctors did not arrive with urgency or alarm, yet its implications were unmistakable. Carefully phrased and deliberately restrained, it acknowledged a reality the palace has been quietly preparing for: King Charles' ability to maintain the full demands of the monarchy can no longer be assumed without adjustment. This was not an announcement of crisis, but of limitation, and for an institution built on permanence, that distinction carries enormous weight. For months, subtle shifts had been visible to those watching closely. The king's schedule appeared lighter. Appearances were more selective. Engagements once expected as routine were either shortened or delegated. Each change was explained in isolation, framed as prudence rather than necessity. But taken together, they formed a pattern the palace could no longer dismiss as temporary. Today's confirmation did not create that pattern. It acknowledged it. The language used by royal doctors was notably cautious. It emphasized monitoring, balance, and sustainability rather than endurance. These are not terms traditionally associated with the monarchy's top office. Historically, the crown has relied on the idea that the sovereign's role is constant, unwavering, and uninterrupted. To suggest otherwise, even indirectly, marks a significant shift in institutional thinking. What makes this moment particularly striking is its timing. King Charles has reigned for a relatively short period, yet the palace is already confronting questions it hoped to postpone. Questions about continuity, about delegation, about how the monarchy functions when the monarch's role must be carefully managed rather than expansively exercised. The confirmation forces these questions into the present. Behind palace walls, preparations for such a moment had reportedly been ongoing for some time. Senior advisors have long understood that modern monarchy demands more than ceremonial endurance. It requires constant visibility, emotional availability, and relentless public engagement, pressures far more intense than those faced by previous generations. The doctor's confirmation validates concerns that these demands must now be recalibrated. This recalibration does not diminish the king's authority, but it does redefine how that authority is exercised. The palace's emphasis on adjustment suggests an institution moving away from a singular, all-encompassing figure toward a more distributed model of responsibility. While not formally stated, the implication is clear: continuity may increasingly depend on support structures rather than individual stamina. For King Charles, this moment carries personal and symbolic significance. He has long been associated with diligence, discipline, and a deep sense of duty. To acknowledge limits, even implicitly, challenges a lifetime of expectation. Yet the confirmation frames this acknowledgement not as retreat, but as stewardship. The message is not that the king is stepping away, but that the crown must be preserved through balance rather than strain. Public reaction to the news has been measured, but deeply attentive. There is concern, certainly, but also recognition. Many understand that the monarchy exists in a world vastly different from that of even a generation ago. The demand for transparency, coupled with constant scrutiny, has altered what leadership requires. The palace's decision to confirm adjustment rather than maintain silence reflects an awareness that credibility now depends on honesty. The word disturbing, used by commentators, captures the emotional response rather than the factual content. It reflects the unease that arises when certainty is disrupted. King Charles represents continuity not only of institution, but of identity. To accept that his role must be moderated is to accept that the monarchy itself is navigating vulnerability. This vulnerability, however, may also mark a turning point. The palace's confirmation suggests an institution learning to adapt without crisis. Rather than waiting for disruption to force change, it is choosing to manage transition deliberately. This approach reflects lessons drawn from recent history, lessons about what happens when adaptation is delayed, until pressure becomes unavoidable. That confirmation also reshapes expectations surrounding succession and support. While no changes have been announced, the acknowledgement of limitation inevitably brings increased focus on the broader royal structure. The monarchy must now function with an understanding that leadership is shared, not singular. This places greater emphasis on preparation, cooperation, and clarity of role across the institution. Importantly, the palace avoided dramatization. There were no definitive statements about timelines or outcomes. This restraint serves a dual purpose. It preserves privacy while preventing speculation from filling a vacuum. By confirming adjustment without detail, the palace has set boundaries, acknowledging reality without surrendering control of the narrative. As the day unfolds, one truth becomes increasingly evident. This moment is not about decline, but about recalibration. It signals a monarchy coming to terms with the limits of endurance in a modern age. King Charles remains sovereign, but the institution he leads is quietly reshaping how sovereignty is sustained. The confirmation from royal doctors does not mark an ending. It marks an inflection point, where tradition meets necessity, and where continuity must be preserved not through insistence, but through intention. The crown is learning that strength is not measured solely by persistence, but by the wisdom to adapt before persistence becomes a burden. And in acknowledging that truth, the palace has taken a step it once resisted, admitting that even the monarchy must adjust to endure. Following the doctor's confirmation, attention within the palace has shifted from reassurance to architecture. Not the architecture of buildings or ceremony, but of responsibility. The monarchy is now quietly reorganizing how authority is expressed, shared, and sustained when the sovereign's presence must be measured rather than assumed. This is not unprecedented, but it is unusually explicit. Historically, delegation within the monarchy has occurred discreetly, often framed as convenience rather than necessity. What distinguishes this moment is intent. The palace is no longer masking redistribution of duties as temporary accommodation. Instead, it is treating delegation as a strategic pillar of continuity. The king's role has always extended beyond visibility. It anchors constitutional rhythm, public symbolism, and national reassurance. When that role requires adjustment, the institution must compensate without appearing diminished. This requires precision. Too little delegation invites strain. Too much risks the perception of absence. The palace's challenge now lies in calibrating that balance. Senior aides are reportedly focusing on sustainability rather than coverage. Rather than attempting to replace every engagement, the monarchy appears intent on prioritizing those moments that carry institutional weight. This suggests a shift away from volume toward significance. Fewer appearances, but more deliberate ones. The crown is refining its presence, not retreating from it. This approach has implications for the wider royal family. Increased responsibility does not automatically translate into increased prominence, but it does require alignment. Each appearance, each statement, must now reinforce coherence rather than spectacle. The monarchy can no longer afford internal contradiction at a time when its central figure must conserve capacity. The role of the Prince of Wales becomes particularly relevant in this context. While no formal changes have been announced, the environment has clearly evolved. Preparation is no longer theoretical. It is operational. The prince's engagements increasingly reflect not just support, but readiness. This does not signal imminence. It signals prudence. What the palace appears determined to avoid is the appearance of acceleration. The confirmation from royal doctors did not trigger haste, but it did remove complacency. Planning that once existed in abstract timelines is now grounded in present conditions. The monarchy is preparing without declaring preparation, a delicate but intentional posture. Public perception plays a crucial role in this recalibration. The palace understands that reassurance must be earned, not asserted. By acknowledging adjustment rather than denying it, the institution is attempting to maintain trust. Silence would invite speculation. Exaggeration would provoke fear. The chosen path, confirmation without alarm, reflects a desire to steady rather than shock. This steadiness is essential in a monarchy still navigating the aftershocks of recent transitions. Stability has become not just an expectation, but a necessity. Any indication of disarray risks compounding uncertainty. The palace's response to the doctor's confirmation suggests an acute awareness of this fragility. At the same time, the confirmation has altered internal dynamics. When the sovereign's capacity is finite, decision-making must become more collaborative. Authority remains centralized, but execution disperses. This requires trust, not just in individuals, but in systems. The monarchy must now rely on process as much as presence. There is also a cultural shift underway. For generations, endurance was celebrated as virtue. The ability to persist without visible limit was considered proof of commitment. Today, that ideal is being reconsidered. Sustainability is replacing stoicism. Preservation is overtaking sacrifice. The confirmation from royal doctors aligns with this evolving ethic. Critics may interpret this as softness, but the palace appears to see it as strength. By acknowledging boundaries, the institution is protecting its core. Overextension, after all, does not enhance authority. It erodes it. The crown is choosing longevity over performance. A calculation shaped by recent history. The doctor's confirmation has also reframed conversations about transparency. While details remain private, the acknowledgement itself represents a shift. The monarchy is learning that controlled openness can stabilize rather than destabilize. In an era of instant analysis, withholding all information no longer guarantees discretion. It invites conjecture. This measured transparency allows the palace to set context. By framing adjustment as responsible governance, it avoids narratives of decline. The emphasis is not on what the king cannot do, but on how the institution will adapt to ensure continuity. This framing preserves dignity while acknowledging reality. As delegation becomes more visible, the monarchy must ensure consistency of message. Every representative appearance now carries amplified significance. Tone, timing, and symbolism must align. There's less margin for misinterpretation when the sovereign's presence is selective. Precision replaces abundance. Ultimately, this moment reveals a monarchy in transition, not between reigns, but between models of leadership. The confirmation from royal doctors has accelerated an evolution already underway. Authority is no longer expressed through relentless presence, but through considered stewardship. The crown remains intact, but its mechanics are shifting. Continuity now depends less on the endurance of one individual and more on the resilience of the institution as a whole. This is a profound adjustment, quietly unfolding behind ceremony and protocol. And as delegation becomes the backbone of stability, the monarchy is redefining what it means to endure, not by insisting on constancy, but by designing it. As news of the royal doctor's confirmation settles beyond palace walls, its emotional impact is unfolding not through panic, but through reflection. The British public has witnessed moments of royal vulnerability before, yet each carries its own texture. This moment feels quieter, less dramatic, but more profound, because it challenges an idea long held as immutable, that the crown is immune to limitation. For generations, the monarchy has drawn strength from predictability. The sovereign appeared, duties were fulfilled, ceremonies continued, and the rhythm of national life remained steady. That rhythm reassured the public that continuity was assured regardless of circumstance. Today's confirmation does not disrupt that rhythm outright, but it introduces a pause, a recognition that continuity must now be managed with intention. Public response reflects this nuance. There is concern, but not alarm. Sympathy, but not hysteria. Many appear to understand that the monarchy, like the nation it represents, exists within human boundaries. The acknowledgement of those boundaries has not weakened public confidence. In some ways, it has strengthened it by replacing myth with honesty. Historically, moments when royal certainty softened often became turning points. They revealed how deeply the monarchy is tied not just to power, but to perception. When perception shifts, the institution must evolve or risk appearing disconnected. The palace's response suggests it has learned this lesson well. King Charles occupies a unique place in this narrative. His reign began under the weight of expectation, shaped by decades of preparation and observation. To now preside over a moment of recalibration is both symbolic and personal. He represents continuity, yet he is also the figure through whom change is being quietly introduced. The doctors. Confirmation has not diminished his authority. It has reframed it. Authority is no longer projected through sheer presence, but through discernment. Choosing when to appear, when to delegate, and when to preserve energy becomes an act of leadership rather than concession. This reframing aligns with a broader cultural shift toward sustainability and leadership. The monarchy's past offers instructive echoes. Previous eras demanded endurance at any cost, often celebrating sacrifice while concealing strain. Those choices sometimes preserved short-term stability but created long-term fractures. Today's approach suggests a desire to break that pattern, to prioritize durability over display. This change resonates with a public increasingly skeptical of institutions that deny vulnerability. The palace's measured acknowledgement allows people to see the monarchy not as an untouchable relic, but as a living institution capable of adaptation. That perception may prove essential in maintaining relevance. Yet this moment also carries psychological weight. The crown has long served as a symbol of constancy in uncertain times. To accept that even this symbol requires adjustment forces a collective reckoning. It asks whether stability comes from unchanging figures or from systems flexible enough to endure change. The palace appears to be answering that question deliberately. By emphasizing continuity through structure rather than stamina, it is redefining what reassurance looks like. The message is subtle but clear. The monarchy's strength lies not in denying limits, but in managing them wisely. Media coverage reflects this complexity. Headlines may lean toward drama, but deeper analysis reveals restraint. Commentators note the absence of urgency in the palace's language and the lack of speculation encouraged by its tone. This restraint has tempered reaction, allowing space for understanding rather than fear. Within the royal family, the confirmation inevitably reshapes relationships. When the sovereign's capacity is finite, collaboration becomes essential. Decision-making grows more collective, roles more defined. This can foster unity, but it also demands clarity. Ambiguity, once tolerated, now carries risk. The Prince of Wales' visibility continues to be interpreted through this lens. His presence reassures without overshadowing. It suggests preparedness without presumption. This balance is delicate, but it reflects a family and institution aware of the psychological signals they send. For the public, this gradual transition feels less like a rupture and more like an evolution. There is comfort in the absence of shock. The palace has allowed adjustment to appear as a natural progression rather than an emergency response. This approach reduces fear and reinforces trust. The confirmation also invites reflection on how leadership is measured. Endurance once symbolized strength. Today, discernment may matter more. The willingness to step back when necessary, to delegate without diminishing authority, represents a modern form of resilience. As conversations continue, one theme emerges consistently: realism. The monarchy is no longer insisting on invincibility. It is presenting itself as sustainable. That distinction matters. Invincibility invites disbelief. Sustainability invites confidence. This moment may eventually be remembered as a quiet pivot, not marked by abdication or upheaval, but by acknowledgement. An acknowledgement that the crown, like the country it serves, must adapt to endure. The weight of the crown has not lessened, but it has shifted. It now rests not solely on one individual, but on a system designed to carry it forward thoughtfully. In that shift lies the monarchy's attempt to reconcile tradition with reality, and as certainty gives way to intention, the institution signals that it understands the difference, and is choosing longevity over illusion. As the implications of the royal doctor's confirmation continue to unfold, the palace's focus has quietly shifted beyond the present moment towards something far more enduring: legacy. Not legacy in terms of monuments or anniversaries, but legacy as institutional memory. The choices made now that will shape how the monarchy is remembered decades from today. King Charles has spent much of his public life preparing for responsibility. His reign, though still relatively early, carries the accumulated weight of expectation, transition, and modern scrutiny. The acknowledgement that his role must be managed with care does not diminish that legacy. It complicates it. It introduces a narrative not of uninterrupted endurance, but of conscious stewardship. This distinction matters. The monarchy has historically celebrated figures who ruled until their final breath, equating longevity with strength. Yet history also reveals the cost of that expectation, moments where rigidity delayed necessary adaptation. The palace's response today suggests an intentional departure from that pattern. The institution appears determined not to repeat the mistakes of endurance without balance. In this context, preparation becomes a form of responsibility rather than a signal of departure. The doctor's confirmation has not triggered visible shifts in succession, but it has normalized readiness. Readiness is no longer confined to private contingency plans. It is embedded in the monarchy's daily operations. This normalization allows continuity to feel organic rather than abrupt. The Prince of Wales stands at the center of this long view. His role increasingly reflects not anticipation but alignment. His visibility supports stability without eclipsing the king's authority. This balance is critical. Too much prominence could suggest haste. Too little could invite uncertainty. The palace's careful calibration reflects an understanding of how symbolism shapes public confidence. This period also reframes how the public understands reigns themselves. Rather than viewing leadership as a single, uninterrupted arc, the monarchy is encouraging a perception of shared guardianship across generations. The crown becomes less about individual endurance and more about collective preservation. Such a reframing aligns with broader societal shifts. Modern leadership values foresight over sacrifice, sustainability over spectacle. The palace's approach reflects this reality. It suggests a monarchy seeking relevance not by resisting change, but by modeling responsible adaptation. There is also an emotional dimension to this moment that cannot be overlooked. For many, King Charles represents continuity after profound national change. To accept that his role must be carefully balanced is to accept that stability itself can be dynamic. This realization carries both reassurance and melancholy. Reassurance that the institution is thoughtful, melancholy that certainty is no longer absolute. Yet the palace appears comfortable with this complexity. It is no longer presenting the monarchy as unchanging, but as enduring precisely because it can evolve. That distinction may define its future relationship with the public. Internally, this shift encourages clarity. Roles become more deliberate. Responsibilities are defined with greater precision. This reduces ambiguity and potential friction. A monarchy operating with clear boundaries is better equipped to withstand scrutiny and transition. The confirmation from royal doctors has therefore served as a catalyst not for crisis, but for coherence. It has aligned internal planning with external communication. The palace is no longer relying on silence to preserve authority. It is relying on structure. Legacy, in this context, is not about how long one reigns, but about how wisely one governs change. King Charles' legacy may ultimately be defined not by unbroken visibility, but by the choices made to protect the institution beyond himself. This perspective reframes the idea of a successful reign. Success becomes measured by resilience rather than duration, by preparation rather than persistence. It suggests a monarchy learning to value transition as part of continuity rather than a threat to it. Public trust hinges on this balance. By acknowledging adjustment without surrendering stability, the palace reinforces confidence. The monarchy appears neither fragile nor rigid. It appears intentional. In an era of skepticism, intention carries weight. As time passes, this moment may be remembered not as a disturbing revelation, but as a quiet recalibration. A moment when the crown chose to confront reality with dignity rather than deny it. That choice may prove decisive in how history judges this period. The crown remains. The king remains. But the mythology surrounding endless endurance has softened. In its place stands a more human, more deliberate institution, one willing to design its future rather than drift into it. The monarchy's long view is clear. Survival does not depend on ignoring limits, but on respecting them. By embracing that truth, the palace has taken a step that previous generations avoided. And in doing so, it has redefined strength, not as the refusal to change, but as the wisdom to change in time.